Hey, welcome, Joe. We are recording now, and Joe, as usual, I tend to end up with such an engaging and valuable conversation with guests on the podcast that I end up going, "Why aren't we recording this?" And we were deep in that conversation, going, "Well, if we're just recording it, this would have been great stuff. So let's start recording it." But let me introduce you, and I'm going to have you give a little bit more of your background. I've known and worked with you for what year and a half, 2 years now,
Mhm.
and I think you and I have both worked with the great David D. I've known Dave. God, I don't know. I mean, I go back so far in this stuff. I was part of Dan Kennedy's original mastermind group before there was a GIKIC. Before that, I was working some with Jay Abraham. But whenever Dave came out on the scene in conjunction with Dan, that's when I hooked up with him and had been in different groups and situations with him. But you connected with him.
Actually, in the middle of the pandemic
Okay.
was when it was. Yeah. So I was working with a group called Market Profit Systems,
Yeah.
and which Dave actually had a part of it. But what happened was, obviously, when the pandemic came along, we went from I was doing 100% live in person teaching seminars
Yeah.
or dinner seminars, and that was majority of the marketing that I was paying for anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then we all know what happened with COVID and shut everything down. So I actually did a webinar. I guess I'm kind of a quick start because I had a seminar on Thursday, and everything shut down on Tuesday. And the following Tuesday, I did a webinar
Yeah.
on the same
Good.
topic. And so
You
then
adapted quickly.
yeah, so then a couple, I guess that probably mid May or June of that same year, Dave came on the scene with Market Profit Systems and started teaching people how to actually do a webinar,
Mm-hmm.
which was eye opening because at that point I had just taken my seminar
Yeah.
and just did the slides and thought that was good enough. And
Mm-hmm.
you realize that it's funny because during COVID, to me, the webinar was I guess it's the only thing you could do really at the time. And as we come out of that, I'm finding that for pure lead generation, it's good. For closing percentages, it's not as good.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So
Live is better by far if you can pull it off.
yeah. But the multi-pronged approach where you've got somebody that came to a webinar and now you can bring them to a live event or reverse, or in my case where we do 3 or 4 different types of webinars over a month's time. And like I do one on Medicaid planning, and then the next week I do one on long-term care planning.
Yeah.
And because they're really two different, it's the same zebra, but just a little bit different stripes.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's go back to how did you end up in this industry?
So I got out of college in 1981, and I enjoyed my college very much. And on campus, I went through 50 interviews and never got a single bite. And it was because they were looking for all the A students
Yeah.
to work for the big corporations.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went into the insurance business. That was kind of what I was left with, I guess.
You bet.
And so I did that for 6, 7, 8 years. Basically, I worked for the old A.O. Williams company, and we did term insurance, and then I got my securities license. Fast forward a little bit.
His books used to be required reading for all my staff.
Well, and I know you've heard the tape "Do It."
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Great stuff.
I heard him live. I mean, I was there. That started in 1977, I think. So I was in the business in 81 to 87, 88. And I mean, I met him in person, and he was just as dynamic in person as he was on those tapes.
Yeah, I never had the privilege of meeting him, but I must have bought hundreds, if not thousands, of copies of his books, and had the written test for the staff, and then any of the videos we get our hands on back then, all of that stuff. He was fantastic. So how did it evolve from there? So you went from AOL.
Well, so then I mid-20s, just got married, don't know what I want to do. I got in the mortgage business for a short period of time, a couple of years.
Mhm.
I sold swimming pools for a year. And then I took a trip down the dark side, went into the car business. I will tell you, I had been totally healed from that.
Yeah.
Right after that, I went into the cemetery business. So now
Okay.
I'm into the 90s.
So you literally sold everything.
Yeah. So we were pre-need, but we
Yeah.
also did we had to attend the funerals, and so
Yeah.
our deal was,
So you sold plus, but people before they died.
before they died,
Yeah.
yes,
To
and
pull
then
out the euphemism of
and
pre-need.
then to their
Yeah.
kids
Yeah.
after they're dead. And
Yeah.
we used to, the old adage was the buying stops when the crying stops.
Yep.
But out of that experience, pretty valuable. I had an old mentor there. He's a gruff old guy, and he told us one of the things we did is we went to we had a free space that we would give away for $90.
Mm-hmm.
Had to pay the perpetual care. Well, so he taught us whenever we were in the office or were in the home to make sure that when you walked in that door, you did what you went there to do
Mm-hmm.
with that client,
Yeah.
which was to give them that space, write the contract up, collect the check. Well, obviously, we weren't there to give something away, really.
Mm-hmm.
But once you satisfied that, and this has served me well over time, if you're, if it's a certain type of lead that you're bringing in, well, go and do what you're supposed to do and fulfill it. And then now you get the chance to talk to them about whatever you want to talk to
Yeah.
them about.
Yeah.
And I'll do some more of that. So then that led me, that was up through the actually 2000 was when I re-entered the financial services business. So I've 32, 33 years, somewhere around there.
Cool. Yeah, but we've both been doing what we do for a long time. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
The conversation about your mentor and the sales process reminds me of that classic sales movie, Tin Men. Did you see that? Tin?
Yeah.
Men?
Yeah.
And I can still quote 5 or 6 of the lines, okay, dummy, you sold it, don't buy it back. So much great stuff from that era. But
Yes.
so you've been a independent financial advisor now for what, over 30 years?
Yeah,
For
over 30 years. And I've always, the only time I was really 2000 to 2006, 7, I was annuities, a little bit of long-term care, life insurance. Okay. And in 2007, I joined, 2008 actually, Lincoln Financial.
Mhm.
And the reason I joined them was because I wanted to learn how to plan. They actually, one of their divisions is called SageMark. And
Okay.
SageMark at the time, in that period of time, was one of the best planning companies in the country, in the United States.
Okay.
And it's interesting because when I did that and that I delivered those plans, and they were literally this thick, 30
Right.
years of projections, right? And I had a client that came back for the annual review, and he said, I found a really good use for that document. And I'm like, oh, what was that? I think it's going to be something cool, right? He said, well, it was working really good as a doorstop. I had a door that kept coming open, so I just put the document. And so when I do plans today,
Mhm.
I tell people, look, it's not going to be a doorstop plan.
Right.
It's going to be something that is shortest to the point, but it's going to have the stuff in it that it needs.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's great. So we were talking before we started recording about kind of the marketing process pre-COVID, during
Mhm.
COVID, post-COVID. What would you say pre-COVID? What was working best for you to generate new qualified clients?
So let me build back in the rest
Yeah,
of
go
the
right ahead.
story. So I left Lincoln in 2013, and Lincoln wanted to control advertising a little more, and had a few run-ins with the compliance folks of what you could actually put into an ad or into a mail piece. And funny story there, I actually had a situation where I had taken, we were marketing IUL at the time, and I had taken the bullet points straight out of a brochure that was produced 1 month before. And I sent that to the compliance lady, and she redlined 2 of them completely, and out of the 5 bullet points, and changed 2 other ones
From their own internal.
from her stuff, right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I actually and they don't like to talk to people. That's the reason they do that. So I called her up and I said, Joyce, I'm just confused here because didn't you get the supporting document for that? And she said, oh, no, I didn't see anything. I said, well, let me send it to you. And so she still redlined 1 of them and changed one. But that's what they do, right? So,
Oh, yeah.
So I left Lincoln then and formed a group with 3 gentlemen. We were OWRS, Odell, Wingfield, Roseman, and Ship. Odell's in Colorado. Wingfield was in Maryland, Ship's in Virginia, and me here. We kind of pooled our resources.
You're in North Carolina, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Went with one IMO. Went with one not broker dealer, but RIA at the time, and actually was broker dealer. And so we trying to consolidate everything, and then the O part of that, he decided that he was better than all of us, and he blew the company up. Which obviously, when you're dealing with partnerships, sometimes that happens.
I'd say it happens more often than not.
Yeah. And then God bless him. God rest his soul. Colin Wingfield died of a heart attack last January, 22, at 43 years old.
Oh.
Just
young.
was gone. Yeah. So transition from there, I joined one of the other partners, Jeremy Ship, and he formed Retirement Capital Planners, and then when he did that, he was building an RIA, needed a place for my managed money, so I moved everything over, and that's been the name that I've been using for the last 4 years.
Yeah,
and then more recently, then we'll get into kind of where I am now. But
yeah. And you've had an eventful couple of days. New website, new book released, hitting the bestsellers list, etc. So that's great.
Yeah. So started writing this book in I guess maybe June, July of last year. Had the idea for a while and didn't really have heard about people writing books. Anyway, I chose a speak to write book where I really didn't have to write it. I was just going through, and so I, over the span of several months there, and hour and 15-minute conversation with the writer, was able to
you were saying you worked with our mutual friend Michael DeLone,
right.
And Michael, I talked to. We did a podcast with Michael probably 6 months ago or more
good.
now. So
yeah,
great guy.
His company. I mean, he did.
Yeah.
They did. It was perfect for me.
Yeah.
The way that this was all set up, and part of the process of Mike's company is he pretty much guarantees you're going to be an Amazon bestseller. And so he knows all the things to do. And so the book launched yesterday, and which was February 15th. And guess what? I'm an Amazon bestseller now.
There you go.
Actually, even international too, which I'm not sure how that happened, but
pretty amazing. Yeah, there it is on Amazon. I haven't gotten a chance to give you a review yet, but number 1 new release released yesterday, the StayRetired model. So congratulations on getting that out the door.
Thank you. Yeah, it's and so in that vein of kind of where we are today and how we're really structured our business. So also last year, I moved my life insurance annuity contract back to a company called Simplicity, and Simplicity, and then they had bought a company called Lone Beacon. And Lone Beacon is literally one of the top marketing organizations for advisors in the country. And I guess it'd probably be a little bit of a competitor for you, Stephen. But they do.
There's a bunch of them. That's fine. Yeah.
Anyway, but they so this process, when I started thinking about the book, then one of the things that I really needed to accomplish during this transition, if you will, was to make sure that I've got control of my collateral. our good friend Bill, is it Huffman? Is that his last name? In our group that the attorney that does the
Oh yeah, yeah. The um
intellectual
IP
property.
attorney. Yeah,
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 intellectual property stuff, right? So
yeah.
anyway, I hadn't met him just for a couple weeks ago, but anyway, I wanted to make sure that going forward that I've got really have control of my messaging and that everything is going under one place.
You
Okay.
bet.
One name. And so we agreed to move all of our stuff to Simplicity, which most of it was there anyway, and then including our wealth. We work with Simplicity Wealth now. Got a really good platform. And so all that now is in place, and now the website launched today. Actually, this is the 16th, and now we are in the process of really putting the pieces in place to to create some real growth here over the next couple of years.
Outstanding, outstanding. And you just launched your new website today as well.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So
I was
company name
cyber stalking you and caught it on the pre-launch phase there.
Yeah. In fact, you want to pull that up the secretary just to.
Yeah, let's see here.
I think I've seen a lot of sites, and another thing we've done is our color was blue and now it's green, and a lot of the book is again, a lot of stuff we're using green. So
yeah. There you go.
they don't want to get you to do something else and back up there. So it's really it's neat the way they did it, and if you let it sit there, the skyline moves and all kind of fun stuff.
Yeah.
So could you pull the book back up for a second?
You bet.
Yeah.
You bet.
I want to point out something there that really made it personal to me, because you put all the time into the book, and it's really my business. The book is the outline of how I do business, from how I treat a client and how we put the plans together and so forth. But anyway, if you look at the cover of the book, I don't know, can you make it bigger? Or?
Yeah.
So that go down to the field. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right in there. So my mom deeded me 43 acres of land several years ago, and this is part of my land.
Okay.
And that picture was taken in October. I have some farmers that pay me to plant their crops there. And that's actually a shot of a soybean field looking out over the property.
Wow.
And I just thought it was really appropriate because that's my retirement dream. Where that's where that's what I'm reaching toward.
I love it. And I like how it launched as a national bestseller.
Yes.
Yeah. Just tell
Yeah.
the truth in advance and launch that into the
Exactly.
the title as you go. I love it. Very good. The so putting those pieces together, what let's start kind of with the marketing process now and work our way backwards. Then using the website and the book and so forth, what's been working for you well to generate quality new clients in the door?
Well, so you asked me, you're talking about COVID, pre-COVID stuff, and I don't think I ever answered that question. But so pre-COVID, it was I had stopped doing dinner seminars completely.
Yeah.
I got tired of I'm not going to say the word plate lickers.
Plate lickers.
Yeah. So
I love that.
Anyway,
in that marketing book I did, I have a chapter called Plate Lickers.
Yeah. So anyway, so I went to up to COVID. I would do a Social Security webinar. I would do not webinar, seminar. I was doing a tax seminar. I have an attorney locally that we were doing 3 or 4 joint estate planning, long-term care seminars together. And so that was keeping me busy, and we were doing generally 2 of those a month, moving the top ground, moving the libraries around. Funny thing here in our county, they don't they don't make you be a nonprofit to be able to get into the library.
Right.
So one of the things is you have to be done at 8 o'clock because they shut the doors. Okay.
Right.
And it ain't 8:05.
Yeah.
And we've had
Yeah.
some.
At 7:55, they're kicking you out of the room. And
Oh, no. It's 7:30.
oh,
They're
there you go.
starting to make the
Gotcha.
announcement that
Yeah.
you folks in the meeting room need to leave. I'm just getting cranked up for my clothes, right? Yeah. So and then one of the places that we go, they redid the whole library, and that whole room is in glass.
Yeah.
So you see the people at the desk stand up and glare at you. But all that was pretty effective.
I've been kicked out of a couple of hotels as they're kicking us out early for the wedding coming in, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Then they're
One of the funniest ones, I had a guest speaker come in doing a Social Security one, and we got started a little bit late. And I told him, I said, look, we have to be done at 10 till, and literally we got to have, but really 15 till, because we got to put the stuff back. You got to put the tables back, right?
Yeah. And
8 o'clock, he had just finished talking, and the security guard came in and grabbed him by the elbow and escorted us out. Like, come on, man! I told you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then we go through COVID, and of course everything was a webinar. Also, there was kind of a struggle in there, trying to get somebody to get the right people on the webinars.
Mhm.
And we tried doing it ourselves for a while, and that got us our Facebook page shut down.
Mhm.
I know nobody has ever had that happen to them.
Yeah.
But
pretty much anybody who's ever done any aggressive marketing on social media has had that once or twice.
Yeah. So found a couple pretty good vendors along the way that have done good jobs. But so then I guess maybe the first of last year, so 23, we went back to, we were still doing quite a few webinars, but I'm again noticing the drop off a little bit of attendance, so forth. So we decided to go to do some live events, and then I got talked into doing dinner seminars again.
Mhm.
And we had to really make a change there on the marketing. I had a company that was running Facebook only campaigns to fill up the Maggiano's where we do them, and we noticed the qualities kind of dipping a little bit, and we knew it was time to change it up some when we had a couple come in, and when the meal was brought out, they're asking for go boxes. And it's as the food's coming out, God, talk about this. This is worse than a plate liquor.
Oh yeah.
They're scooping the chicken parmesan and not even letting people at the same table eat. So we had to first thing we did is we instituted that, hey, we got a couple families, we really do, that we'll take the food to. So we don't, you eat what you want, but if you don't eat it, then you didn't get to take it home with you. So we had to go back specifically to direct mail for those campaigns, because Facebook was we didn't have the right picks or the right focus or something.
Well, what I tend to say on Facebook for especially a local area is you can get results. You're just not going to get the volume of results or the quality of results that you want, right? So, you might be able to put 5 people in a room or 2 or 3 people in the room or whatever, but you're not going to be able to scale it up.
Well, right. And I'll tell you that generally we for like a Social Security workshop, we're getting 20 people to show up.
Yeah.
Now again, that's a little different thing to me. If I'm just paying $100 for the $100 for the venue, and then I'm paying 2,000 or so for the Facebook ads. So we get 20, 25 people show up. It's when I'm feeding people dinner, I want a higher quality. So what we did there is we actually went to direct mail. We're very, very targeted on that. And then when we get a week out from the event, based on what we have in place, the reservations, then we'll do a real quick Facebook ad
Yeah.
To bring in, fill the room up
To top it off.
and you don't know. I mean, the thing is, we did a long-term care webinar in I guess it was probably October was one of the ones we did, and end up with a $6 million client out of it.
Mhm.
And they just wanted to know they were actually buying a new long-term care policy, and they were going to get rid of their old one, and they just wanted validation that they were doing the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And so I did the analysis, and they were doing the right thing. And also they should have kept the old one, which they did, because it was very inexpensive. And then we ended up bringing them on as a planning client, and I've gotten some good business out of it too.
When you get a meeting like that with, say, 20 participants, what's the cost per head to get them in the room? The cost per new client? Do you have a
So we're all in. So the platform we use right now, about $3,000 is what we're spending total on the folks that are running the event, the Facebook ads, which is the majority of that, and then the venue, which is again $100, $150, something like that.
So it's about 150 a head.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And what do the closing numbers look like on an average event like that?
Stephen, I got to tell you that when I do an event, I'm looking. It's kind of like was it Curly in what was the movie that Billy Crystal was in with real old guy? He said there's just one thing. There's one. They were I can't remember the name of the movie. Anyway, I'm looking for one client.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
If I got one decent sized client out of every single seminar that I've ever done, then I would be further along, because there's been where I've got none, and
Sure.
So I mean, generally out of if I got 20 people in the room, I'm gonna set appointments with around half the room. Okay. I know these guys will give you I'll set an appointment with 75% of all participants that show up. And
well,
you
probably half
said,
of them you don't want to be
exactly right. Yeah. So we'll start out with about 10, and then end up running 5 or 6 appointments out of it. And again, my goal is to get one client out of it.
Yeah.
If I get 2, then I'm way ahead of the game.
Well, and then if you look at those numbers from that perspective, if you got one quality client and it costs $3,000 in hard costs for the event plus your time.
Yeah.
So, let's say that you've invested now 5 hours, right? So, if you put a dollar amount to it, you've got $5,000 to $8,000 into the deal.
Yeah.
Depending on, how valuable your time is. But one quality client, let's say they've got 2 million in assets. That's a very, very valuable client.
That's $50,000 to $50,000 a year, first year of revenue, and then ongoing.
Yeah. And the thing that does set you apart from 99% of financial advisors is the ability to think in that kind of return on investment straight in the door. I can't tell you how many I talk to who are like pissed off that it took them, $100 to get somebody in the room, or $200 to get somebody in the room. It's like, well, what or they're mad that they spent couple grand to get a new client. Is like, well, what are you talking about? If they're worth, use the numbers you just did, if they're going to be worth, $100,000 lifetime value, sometimes more. And then you get referrals, you get, second, third generation, everything else from a new client. It's a tremendous return on investment.
Well, so and I know you're talking to a lot of advisors. So let me give advisors some advice.
Yeah, go ahead.
I actually recruited and trained mortgage protection agents for 2 years. I had an office in Charlotte, and I was running meetings in Charlotte, Greensboro, and Raleigh every week. Had multiple agents. We were giving them the leads, and then there was a commission split and all that kind of stuff. And there are a lot of people that are in this industry that if their wives didn't work, then they couldn't be in this industry.
Oh yeah.
sadly.
They're
And
just like realtors.
yeah, yeah. And those folks, God bless them, all they're looking for is to go make a product sale and
Yeah.
then half explain the product to them, and then they disappear. I mean,
Yeah.
pretty much. They don't have any service going on. And it's that model to me. I mean, people are successful at it and they do it, but it really irritates me when I run across a client that's, they got one annuity, okay,
Yeah.
right, that kind of really doesn't fit anything that if somebody would have done a plan would have sold them. They just sold the product because it made a good commission.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that really frustrates me.
It's the allure of upfront cash
Yeah.
versus the recognition of developing a long-term client.
Mhm.
And the industry is ripe with people who are chasing that big commission in many cases because they need, they
Well,
need this month's commission to pay last month's bills.
yeah.
Uh, but that's not the way to really build a long-term stable base. What you want to do is you want to develop continuity income from people. You want to maintain that level of, I mean, all these things we could talk about, but maintain the level of contact, maintain the relationship, have it continue to be build a referral base, build a quality base. But that ongoing year after year income is really where to me, it's a very exciting business if you're at the top 1%,
Yeah.
because you develop a really solid revenue stream, you develop a really solid business, you develop, many advisors get to the point they really don't need any new clients
Right.
other than to replace the ones that are dying off. If they do a good job with their families, they
Mhm.
keep those.
Right.
Um, but I've worked with a number of advisors. I kind of got started in this working with, people who are captive in some of the big companies.
Mhm.
And those companies have a 95%, 90% failure rate of all the new people
Oh yeah.
they're bringing in for that very reason. They just don't give them any tools to create that basic clientele.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
but so when you shifted to webinars, what we were talking about before we started recording here is the difference between the results you're getting from a webinar, the results you're getting from a live meeting. Part of what I tend to tell advisors is, and you've done a good job of this on your LinkedIn page and different websites and so forth. But I always tell them the more they niche, oftentimes the more they expand the geography.
Mhm.
And so then the rationale for doing a webinar is you have people that are, on the other side of the country, and you want to be able to get to them virtually rather than in person. But let's talk about the closing rate difference between you get them in the room and you get to press flesh and you really get to meet them versus they're on a video screen. And by the way, my big pet peeve, any day of the week, I would do a Zoom meeting with 50 people where I can see them and they're interactive than I would a webinar where I can't see them, right? And any day of the week, I'd be in a conference room with 10 of them rather than be on an interactive Zoom meeting with 50 of them.
Right. So let me kind of back up into uh pre-COVID and the that switch there because it's really important. Um, so I actually in October of 2019, and I've always first of all I had IMOs tell me 10 years ago that Social Security seminars didn't work,
Yeah.
and they were going to quit doing them. And the thing is, there's people turning 62 and 65 every day, so those have been consistent working. So, but like you're talking about niching, and that's what brought this up. So, we actually through Danny Hammond, okay, and I don't know if you know Danny or not, but
I don't.
Bill Hammond
Oh, I know Bill. Yeah.
and Julie Stein, Danny's Bill's son. So Julie Steinbacher runs the $1 Million Lawyer, and she purchased it from Bill Hammond. And then Bill kind of stayed around because he liked what she was doing.
Bill and I were both in one of Dan's early mastermind groups together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So anyway, the
Aging
concept
myself
here,
again now.
that's
He
okay.
sold and retired, and his son's right.
Yeah. But the concept was bit, anyway, it was through the Dementia Society of America. Okay. They were trying to raise their profile. and direct mail company got involved, and we would do a live seminar, afternoon, evening at a hotel, and the first part of it was actually we would play the tape of Kevin Jameson, who was the Dementia Society president, and talk about dementia and the 7 steps and the fact that there's 84 different kinds of dementia, and then the second half of it was the advisor doing a long-term care presentation.
Mhm.
And I did one of those and was, we're getting started. And then the second one I did, I actually put the paid for the mailing, and the mailing went out like on Friday, and Tuesday was when COVID shut down.
Yeah.
So there was nothing I got out of that because nobody signed up yet. Okay. So with when so that was a niche that we were using, was using the dementia as a pull-in for the long-term care conversation. And so that did okay for a while, and then we were seeing that I don't know, it wasn't doing as good. So now the two I do now, I actually have a gentleman that does Medicaid planning, and you're also talking about where you do it. So obviously pre-COVID, my market was 25 miles from my office. I mean, that, and I have clients move away, and I'm still their advisor. They live in Ohio and Myrtle Beach and Florida and stuff.
Yeah.
But with trying to build a local business, you're obviously limited. So when COVID came along, I'm like, well, let's see what we could do here. We'll expand. And the Medicaid webinar we do it in 10 states, and the long-term care we do it in 14.
Yeah.
And so we're really able to, and this Medicaid webinar, we'll have 400 people sign up for, and usually about 100 that will attend. But again, we're still, if we get 1 or 2 cases out of that, then we're still doing good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
God, what is his name? Scott, I did an interview with, and I knew him and his wife through all kinds of different associations. They're involved with Dave D, with Dan Kennedy. In fact, back when I went to Boise to speak for them, they also had them there. It'll come to me in a second, but that was their approach. By the way, I did a podcast interview. It's Scott Mazinko, the Retirement Authority.
Okay. Okay.
But Scott and his wife were leading with Medicare, and what they were doing is they had put together a 2 or 3 page letter. They got one of Zig Ziglar's old wood round tuits, and they had this crafted letter that they put out. And I'm going to butcher the numbers, but they were doing something like 40 sales a month. And
now different in Medicare and Medicaid.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. Medicare. They were doing Medicare.
Medicare. Right. Yeah.
Not Medicaid. Yeah.
Right.
Medicare. And right at the time I talked to them, and I think they've shifted, but right at the time I talked to them, they were just signing them up for the Medicare supplement plan. I don't know anything about Medicare insurance, but they were just signing them up for the Medicare supplement plan. And I was sitting down talking to them. I think it was in Boise over dinner. And I said, well, what does the average prospect that you're signing up look like? He goes, oh, well, most of them are $600,000-700,000 a year income, have $5-6 million in assets. I'm like, aren't you just immediately flipping them into wealth management? He said, oh no, we haven't been doing that. It's like, how many of these have you sold? 5,000. Oh, well, let's just get a CFP on your payroll. We're gonna flip them all into wealth management right away. And you've got a $2 billion company in 18 months. But they had just built this machine, and they were capitalizing off the lowest common denominator. Just amazing.
so the is so again, I'm what I'm looking for in the client is I want the planning client.
Yeah.
Okay. But something that another thing that we're just building now is we're building a relationship with an attorney network.
Mhm.
Okay. And the conversations that I have with the attorney is we've got a script how they can refer to us well. And they have another company that they have been working with that they love the people, they love the advisor, but the advisor, instead of talking about the attorney sends them a long-term care lead. Okay. You got them hyped about long. Well, then this other company, now they want to do a full plan before they talk about long-term care.
Yeah.
And it goes back to what my old mentor, his name was G.W. Thompson, uh, about doing what you go to do and then
Oh,
you
yeah.
can do what you want.
You bet.
Once you've got a client and you've taken them through, say the long-term care sale or an insurance sale or whatever it is, then you earn the right with your knowledge to do a full-blown plan, and now you get to all assets. So
You bet. You bet.
yeah.
No, that's exactly right. So if you look at the and I don't think we ever got to it very very thoroughly. You went from the dinner meetings to doing webinars, and
Yep.
then on the webinar side, what was it costing you to get a participant, and what were the closing rates looking like there?
So the Medicaid webinar, actually we have a national Medicaid expert. The guy his team does all 50 states. Okay. And when we run that campaign, we generally have about 400 registrations.
Okay.
And we generally have about 100 people that show up on those.
Yeah.
The long-term care, it's more like 200 and then 50 that show up.
Okay.
So the last batch we did, we ended up with 22 appointments. So with those two combined, okay. So again, we got 650 participants, and we only got 22 appointments. So that's
Right.
what a lot of people would say. All right.
Yeah.
Well, out of that group, there are 7 that are viable deals that
Yeah.
we're working on.
Yeah.
So
Now let me let me walk you back through the process here. A lot of times, what I find is that advisors oftentimes they contract out. They hand off to somebody to do the direct mail, to do the
right.
Facebook ads, one thing or another to fill these things up. But then what I find is they don't do anything with the lead until they get to the actual webinar, and then when they get to the actual webinar, they make their pitch, schedule an appointment or not. But there's all these people, you were saying 75% who register who don't show up. And then there's all these people who aren't ready to do something now. I'm sure you've got processes in place. How do you deal with
Well,
those?
so prior to COVID, I was one of those people. Okay.
Okay.
I do the event, we'd follow up, we'd have some follow-ups later. Okay. So when I joined again Market Profit Systems, that we started sending out the emails, right? The nurture email. And I actually picked up in the early part of that, I picked up clients that were on my list from 5 years before.
Yeah.
5 years.
5 years.
That had an occasional contact with me or no contact, some of them no contact. And now all of a sudden I put them in a drip sequence that's ongoing. I started out with email a day and got the feeling I didn't have a lot of people opt out of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just got a feeling that it was a little much. So we went back to 3 a day, a 3 week.
3 a week. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's see. Am I answering you?
Now that's, when I say to people, do you continue contact with your old leads? Oftentimes they're like, oh yeah, I contact them a lot. Well, what is that? I do 1 email a month. It's like,
yeah, right.
No.
Well, and the whole thing there, and again, Dave said this many times, is roughly, I think the number is it 15% of the people that are sitting in front of you today are really ready to buy.
Yeah. Yeah. If
Okay.
that.
Yeah. It maybe it's closer to 10. Okay.
Yeah.
So probably 20% either don't qualify or they're just bored and looking for information.
Mhm.
Okay. So that means that other 60% there, if you can nurture those properly,
Yeah.
and so now we did a Medicaid webinar. Now we invited them to the long-term care webinar. Well, now we got an estate planning webinar, or we got a local event.
Mhm.
You know, I've had people show up locally on my webinars, and then 2 weeks later they're sitting in my dinner seminar.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if if you don't have some kind of ongoing drip system newsletter more than once a month, then you're losing because
Yeah.
others out there are really marketing to the masses, and then they're really marketing to their people that come across their purvey. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe said slightly differently is, the last thing you want to do is get them interested in a topic and then disappear off their radar and have them go look up somebody else, right?
Well,
That's the real risk.
I go back to another career I had. I was in the
Yeah.
car business for about 6 years. And I think I said earlier, I've been healed from that. But anyway,
Although that brings up another book. My required reading for staff was all of Joe Girard's books.
oh God, yeah, that thing
Oh
was
yeah.
awful. Yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, you're in the car business. It was 48 hours back when I was in the business, which was in the 80s.
Yeah.
And we had the dealership I had, it was golden times. There were probably in Charlotte, North Carolina, 1/5 of the number of dealerships that there are today.
Mm-hmm.
And the dealership that I was working at, Town and Country Ford, we were doing 1,000 cars a month. We had 80 salespeople.
Yeah.
That at any one time, and we were taught then that you need to close them right now, but if you can't close them now, then you better follow up on them this afternoon and tomorrow, because 48 72 hours, if they're going to get in a car and drive away with it.
Yeah.
And so I've had some obviously the various sales training that I've had has put me to the point where I am right now. And
yeah. What I say a lot of times is the paradox of lead follow-up is if you don't get them immediately, like we're trying to get a hold of them within 30 seconds of an opt-in. If you don't get hold of them immediately, a lot of them you miss and you end up chasing. On the other hand, if you don't continue to follow up with them forever, a lot of them you miss and don't get. So you get the ones that are hot right now, especially in the car business. I'm going to go buy a Corvette or a truck or whatever it might be. But then if you don't continue to follow up with them, you miss them. So you were using the 15%, and I think a lot of times it's lower than that, especially online. But if you're not following up with them strong, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, it's again the value of like a physical book. I tell people, if nothing else, I want my book on their desk as a coaster, so that when they're ready to do something, they see that, and then they see my email, and then they see the newsletter they got in the mail physically, and then everything else, and I can continue to haunt them and follow them forever.
Exactly, and until they until they opt out of my list, or if they do come in and it ends up that there's they're not a good fit because they're a-holes or they don't have any money.
Yeah.
and I probably leave some of those on there because I got people that the webinars, I don't care. You want to attend every webinar I do for the next 5 years and just be, just listen to me talk. It ain't costing me no money. It ain't costing me more. So
what I'll do with most of our systems is we'll qualify them on the way through. And of course, they're self-reporting, so you never know whether they're lying on one end or the other. And then use that self-qualification to determine how much money we're going to spend on them, right? So if they end up highly qualified, we may spend $200 on following up and mail and send them cookies and every other thing. And if they look very unqualified, we're not going to take them off the email list. We may send them some text and stuff like that.
I mean, because let me tell you what happens. I've had clients that were small that I
Yeah.
sold them a life insurance policy, a term policy, and made $300. Well, people die.
Hmm.
Their brother dies, their parents die,
Yeah.
and so if you're there with them in the process and you're being nice to them and maybe even giving them a little more than they really deserve as what they're giving you back in revenue,
Yeah.
then you can pick some of those up, and I have
Well, yeah, and or referrals from them.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Well, we had exactly that example. One of my clients who I had hooked up with a financial advisor, and when he talked to them the first time, they were, they weren't doing very well under our tutelage, otherwise, and they had some cash flow, but they didn't have, much wealth built. And then they had a relative pass away, and suddenly had a seven-figure sum of money. And knowing this particular couple, if we hadn't been there right at the right time, it would have been the new Corvette and the blown
Yeah.
on God knows what, rather than here, let's plug that in and let's build an ongoing income out of it. And it was being it was having the relationship built ahead of time. That's absolutely right.
Let me give
Right.
you another example there too. And I don't know, I guess we're probably coming to our time here.
Yeah, we're about running out of time, but
yeah. But the couple that came in today, they came to a Social Security workshop. The guys, he's 72 now. So it was when he was right around that full retirement age, 66, right? And he was making really good money, but he had messed up on his pension. He had forgot to elect something. They ended up losing a pension, $500,000. And when they came in, they were going to turn his Social Security on at 66 in order to just kind of make ends meet.
Yeah.
And I started looking at their situation, and she was a nurse and had a lot of money in her retirement plans, which she couldn't touch. When I look at it, I'm like, you need to hold off on this. Well, so today, so he waited till he was 70 to turn his on. She waited till she was 68. Their Social Security benefit combined is $80,000 a year.
There you go.
And had they done it when they were wanting to do it, it would have been about 50.
Big difference.
And so, they like me.
Oh yeah, yeah. As well they should.
No, they don't like me. They love me.
Yeah. But if it, before we run out of time here, if you were going to give somebody newer in the business or looking to scale their firm more aggressively, what are 2 or 3 tips you would give them after 30 years of being in this industry?
So the first thing I would tell you that if you're going to do seminars, webinars, you're going to commit to marketing, then you have to commit to marketing.
Yeah.
You cannot do one event and then try to drive the revenue off the one event and then do another one, because I don't care. I mean, I've had people in my sales cycle for 6 months.
Yeah.
Okay. For 4 months. And I'm talking about, I had them engaged and now everything just kind of slowed down for whatever reason. But I would say, if you're not going to commit to marketing, and so maybe you need to scale it back a little bit to begin with, and don't go for the big fancy dinner seminar or something like that.
Yeah.
But don't just do one. Commit to at least 3, and then don't check the results too closely. And I don't mean you don't want to check the results, but if things don't go right the first one, and that's the first one you've ever done, or even worse, if you do really good the first one, it's probably bad because you haven't figured out what
you haven't learned that mistake.
Yeah. Well, and then you do 2 or 3, and you don't get any results, and you're like, oh, I forget this, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So I would say if you're gonna commit to doing marketing, then you gotta at least commit to really to 6 months of doing the same thing over and over.
Yeah. And as you were saying, you were doing pre-COVID, is be excited to get a registration, even if they don't show up, because now you got somebody to follow up. And especially the more qualification information you get, along the way, you can start differentiating, and the right way to discriminate among people is this looks like somebody who's a good prospect. This does not look like somebody who's a good prospect. And then do differential follow-up based upon that. Here's the path where I'm going to send them a big box and they're going to get the book and they're going to get all this other stuff. Maybe they're going to get a postcard a week for 6 months. They're going to get a newsletter every month. They're going to get email. Here's a path that they're only going to get email. Here's the middle tier, and kind of go from there. That's super important. And again, never give up on them just because you didn't get the sale today, because a small percentage of them are ready to make the sale today. Joe, I was involved, just to wrap up here. I was involved in some internal studies with one of the big companies, and what they were showing was as many as 2/3 of the people who have an advisor aren't particularly happy with their advisor.
Mm-hmm.
And as many as 1/3 of them were thinking about leaving at any one time.
Yep.
And I think a lot of the people that you don't get fall in probably one of two categories. They're either like we were talking about, doing the books, having somebody do it for you, or doing it yourself. They're either in the do it yourself category right now.
Right.
And then when something hits the news that shakes their confidence, maybe that's when they come back to you.
Yeah.
Or they're in the category of, I don't particularly think my guy or gal cares or is too engaged, but there's pain and disconnect. So I'm not quite ready to disconnect. And the more you impress them and drip on them and educate them and invite them to events and so forth, the more you move them up that ladder to, you look like you're worth the pain of leaving the other guy, or you're worth the extra, small percent in order for somebody to manage it more professionally than you're able to do yourself.
Yep. Absolutely.
Hey, Joe, it's been great.
Hey.
Anything to add there? We'll remind them, go pick up your book. It's a great model for what they can do.
Yeah, we did go buy the book. You buy the Kindle version, 99 cents, if you want to listen to it, but go buy the book, because if you're new in this industry, if I would have had this model, one other thing too. So I charge fees.
Yeah.
Okay. A lot of folks that are just selling product, that's all they do. And so there's really no justification. But if you get to the point where you actually really do plans for people, then you can justify charging a fee. And I will tell you that in 2024, in renewal fees, I've got $40,000 sitting there coming in this year before I do anything. And that's not counting the managed money where I'm getting recurring revenue from.
Yeah.
But
I was just having that conversation, I think it was yesterday, with somebody, and I was being kind of flippant. I was relaying a conversation I had with Dan Kennedy about the same subject. But one of the ways to position yourself as the expert is to have an upfront fee. And what happens so many times is advisors commit all this free time and effort to people, which really is super valuable. But if you sit down and say it's $5,000 for this package or $2,500 for this package, here's the annual planning fee, whatever it might be, depending upon your niche, I elevate towards the higher numbers.
Yeah.
But it suddenly positions you, one, as the expert, and two, is it becomes a qualifier of the people that you want on the way through the door.
And interestingly on that, and when I know we got to go here. So I've actually, my standard fee is $2,500. And I adjusted, based on a little bit based on who's sitting in front of me.
Yeah.
And I have quoted a $5,000 fee because I didn't want to work with the person. I didn't think they'd be a good fit. And also,
they said yes.
Yeah, I've had folks that just said, well, I go over to this guy and get, he's not going to charge me a fee. I'm like, well, go. Okay. Because, and then final thing, if of all, I generally do around 20 new clients a year. Okay. And 2025. And out of all those where I collect the planning fee, I would generally have one in a year that will not implement anything.
Right.
But the other whatever number that is will, because they got some skin
in the game. Yeah.
Yeah.
That in and of itself is very important. is getting that compliance from just having the commitment up front.
Yep.
No, I couldn't agree more. And but again, what happens is in the there's a, I read a lot, you can probably tell, but another great book is Robert Cialdini's Influence, Science, and Practice. And one of the great quotes from that book is, absent other objective criteria, price determines perception of value. If you'll do it for $2,500 or you'll do it for $5,000, and the guy down the street will do it for free, they assume you must be that much better than that person. And this is a business where they want the best, they don't want the cheapest, right? They want somebody. I mean, it's other than taking care of their kids, they want their money well taken care of. They don't want to be impoverished in their old age. They want to, and certainly they want somebody honest and upfront. And it's a good criteria for developing that mental position in their mind. Hey, Joe, it's been great. It's been great. This is
Stephen, thank you so much.
It's a great material.
I'm glad you gave me an outline of what I was supposed to talk about so that we could really stay on track here.
All of that prep work we did. You mean prep work before we got there, and the outline of all the questions to ask and all that stuff.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
My perspective is always, if somebody doesn't know the topic, you don't want to talk to them anyway. And if they do know the topic, they better be able to
well, I was on a podcast with an attorney, and we were talking just long-term care.
Yeah.
And the girl gave me 3 questions.
Yeah.
And that were, we had talked about these in advance. So because we wanted to make sure we covered those 3 things.
You bet.
We ended up covering a lot of other stuff too. So perfect.
Well, there you go.
All right.